probably think you are in complete control of your decisions and thoughts, but what if I told you there's something deeper at play? In this 3-part series, we're diving into 21 psychological phenomena that are hardwired into every human brain. These thinking errors can shape your day-to-day decisions, and you may go your entire life unaware of how they're steering your choices. While you can't simply turn them off, recognizing when they pop up is the first step toward becoming a more rational, thoughtful thinker. This series is inspired by Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman's groundbreaking book, Thinking Fast and Slow. The Halo Effect. Imagine a well-dressed President Trump knocks on your door and offers to grow and manage your business for you. Would you accept his offer? If so, you have fallen prey to the halo effect without you realizing it. It's a phenomenon where if a person has one positive trait, like being conventionally good-looking, then we assume they must have other positive traits, like being intelligent, kind, or successful, even if we've just met them and have no evidence to support that. A teacher might unconsciously favor a well-behaved student, assuming their academic work is equally strong, or they might assume that a student who excels at one subject like math is a strong student overall, even if they actually struggle in other areas. This is particularly significant in politics, where a leader who's charismatic and good at public speaking might be assumed to be a strong leader overall, even if they haven't yet proven themselves in other areas, like policy and decision-making. But the halo effect can also work in reverse, where if someone has one negative trait, like having dirty clothes, it leads us to believe that they have other negative traits as well, like being disorganized, lazy, and unproductive. So, how can we use this to our advantage? Well, for ourselves, we can try and be more aware that the halo effect exists and try to do things to make a good first impression. And with others, we can try not to let one positive or one negative trait define our entire perception of them. The hindsight bias. After a tense football game, you always claim you knew they were going to lose, even though you were on the edge of your seat, uncertain of the outcome the whole time. When your couple friends broke up, you said you always knew their relationship wouldn't last, despite never voicing those concerns before it ended. After seeing your exam results, you glance at a question you got wrong and think, I knew that was the answer, even though you were totally stuck when you took the test. It seems like you have the ability to predict everything, when in fact, this is the hindsight bias at work. Hindsight bias, also known as the knew-it-all-along phenomenon, is the tendency to perceive past events as more predictable than they actually were. This happens because people often forget or change their past predictions to match what they know now. When something is easy to understand after it happens, it feels like it was obvious, and sometimes believing an outcome was bound to happen helps us feel like things make sense. When a movie reaches its end and the viewer discovers who the killer really was, they might look back on their memory of the film and misremember their initial impressions of the guilty character. To avoid hindsight bias, be aware of it and keep track of your predictions before events happen. Challenge your conclusions by considering other possible outcomes and taking time to reflect before judging. Getting different perspectives can also help you realize that the outcome wasn't as obvious as it seems. Confirmation bias. This is John. John strongly supports a certain candidate and shares news stories that paint them in a positive light, while discounting or ignoring news that are critical. When a political scandal breaks that involves his supported politician, he interprets the evidence in a way that minimizes their guilt or blames an opposing party. John has a habit of only paying attention to things that back up what he already believes. That's a classic case of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a type of cognitive bias that favors information that confirms your previously existing beliefs. If you form a strong negative first impression of someone, you might unconsciously seek out behaviors that confirm that initial judgment, even if they occasionally act contrary to it. This can also be seen in the way we choose friends and partners. We are more likely to be attracted to and befriend people who share our same beliefs and values, and less likely to associate with those who don't. Unfortunately, all humans are prone to confirmation bias. However, knowing about confirmation bias and accepting its existence can help you recognize it. Be curious about opposing views and listen to what others have to say and why. This can help you see issues and beliefs from other perspectives. Availability heuristic. Imagine your manager is considering either you or another employee for a promotion. You have been the highest performer in your department for the last 5 years. However, in your first year, you accidentally deleted a company project when your computer crashed. With this incident in mind, your manager decided to promote the other employee instead. This unfair evaluation is due to the availability heuristic, which suggests that singular, memorable moments have a bigger influence on decisions when compared to less memorable ones. The availability heuristic can lead to bad decision-making because memories that are easily recalled are often insufficient for figuring out how likely these things are to happen again. For example, many people falsely assume that driving is safer than flying, since it is easier to recall vivid images of deadly plane crashes than car crashes. Availability bias can also influence how we perceive ourselves. Being quick to recall negative experiences can make us feel inadequate, whereas easily remembering our achievements might lead to overconfidence and insufficient preparation. So, how can we avoid this? Sadly, this bias is wired pretty deep into our brains, so we can't just reprogram ourselves to get rid of it completely. A deliberate strategy to counter the availability heuristic is called red teaming, which involves nominating one member of a group to challenge the prevailing opinion, no matter what their personal beliefs are. Looking for mistakes on purpose can help stop us from automatically treating shortcuts as facts without really questioning them. The anchoring bias. A G comes up to you and offers you a deal. In his hand, he holds a large jar filled with marbles. If you can guess the exact number of marbles inside within 3 tries, he'll grant you 3 wishes. If not, you get nothing. To help, the genie gives you a hint. There are at least 100 marbles in the jar. What you don't realize is that he's already playing a psychological trick on you. This is known as the anchoring effect, a cognitive bias where we rely too heavily on the first piece of information presented when making decisions. That initial number, 100, likely led you to estimate somewhere in the low hundreds, even though there could easily be thousands of marbles in the jar. Businesses are masters at using anchoring. For instance, a store might place an overpriced item near the entrance so that everything else inside seems like a great deal by comparison. Or a jacket marked $200 is on sale for $120. It feels like a bargain because your expectations were anchored by the $200 tag. So how can you use anchoring to your advantage? In salary negotiations, start by asking for more than your ideal number. That higher figure sets the anchor, and employers are more likely to settle closer to it, even if it's above the typical market rate. If you're trying to convince your partner to buy a certain car, start by showing them a much pricier one. When you reveal the car you actually want, it suddenly feels more reasonable. To protect yourself from being manipulated by anchoring, question the first number you're given, do your own research, and define your expectations ahead of time. Think in ranges instead of fixed values, and focus on objective facts. The framing effect. Imagine you are dying, and the only way to save you is to undergo a surgery. You are presented with 2 doctors. Dr. A has a 60% success rate. Dr. B has a 30% failure rate. Which doctor would you choose? If you pick Dr. A, then you fell prey to the framing effect. The framing effect suggests that individuals make decisions based on how an issue is framed rather than on the facts presented. This milk is 98% fat-free, while this milk only has 2% fat. Most people would choose the first option, as it is our tendency to choose an option that is more positively presented, even if the outcome is the same. Advertisers and marketers use this trick a lot. Another principle is people tend to favor larger numbers over smaller ones when making decisions. Get $1,000 cash back when you buy the car. Get 5% off the selling price of the car. Given these 2 options, most people would choose the first. The second option would likely deter potential buyers due to the necessary calculation. So, how do we avoid this? A 2010 study found that people who really care about an issue are more likely to carefully look at the hidden messages compared to those who aren't as invested. By being aware of this bias, we can get closer to the truth of the messaging and be less subject to manipulation by the way the message is framed. The spotlight effect. If you wear an embarrassing t-shirt to class or work, how many of your peers would notice? Researchers exactly did this experiment and found that most participants predicted a high percentage of their peers would notice. However, the actual results showed that only about 25% of peers reported noticing the shirts. This is the spotlight effect. It is a phenomenon where we tend to overestimate how much other people notice us. We tend to think that there is a spotlight on us at all times, noticing our mistakes for all the world to see, when in fact, people are often too busy with their own lives. You worry all day that other people notice your outfit and judge you. In reality, most people likely didn't pay much attention. Or if they did, they probably thought it looked fine. You worry people will see your personal flaw, such as a bad habit. Or you might also feel like people are watching your performance and noticing every small mistake. Awareness of the spotlight effect can help lessen nervousness or embarrassment in social situations. If you can get to the point where you realize nobody is paying attention to you, then you will stop worrying so much about it. When something makes you feel like you are in the spotlight, think about how you would respond if the same thing happened to somebody else. If a friend misspoke, would it be a big deal? If a coworker made a small mistake during a presentation, would you even think much of it? Once you realize that other people feel the same way about your own actions, you'll probably start to feel more at ease and less like you are standing in front of a spotlight.